The Saturday morning sun in Brooklyn didn't just enter the brownstone, it intruded. It sliced through the blinds of Maya's bedroom, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air and highlighting the frantic energy that had taken over the house. 14-year-old Maya sat on the edge of her bed, her feet dangling just above the hardwood floor. She was dressed in her oversized flannel pajamas, her knees pulled slightly inward, a physical manifestation of how small she felt. But it was her hair that commanded the room. Freshly washed, her thick 4C natural hair had sprung free from its braids, shrinking into a dense, magnificent cloud that framed her face. It was a galaxy of tight coils, defying gravity, damp and smelling of shea butter and peppermint. To Maya, her hair felt like breathing. To her mother, it looked like a problem. "Maya, please tell me you are not just sitting there." Diane stood in the doorway. Even on a Saturday, Maya's mother carried the sharp, terrifying efficiency of a corporate law firm. She was dressed in a slate-gray blouse and tailored trousers, her posture rigid, checking her watch with a rhythmic, impatient tapping of her manicured nail. Diane's own hair was a weapon of assimilation, a chemically straightened, stiff bob that didn't move when she turned her head. It was the armor she wore to survive in boardrooms where she was often the only black woman. "I'm drying it, Mom," Maya said, her voice quiet. She reached up, touching a damp coil near her ear. It sprang back instantly. Diane walked into the room, the heels of her house slippers clicking on the wood. She stopped in front of the hanging garment bag that held the dress and emerald green gown that cost more than Maya's first 3 years of art supplies combined. "We have the appointment at the salon in 45 minutes, Diane said, her voice tight. "Madame C is doing a silk press." "I want it bone straight, Maya, wrapped and sleek." Maya looked up, her stomach twisting. "Mom, I don't want to straighten it." "Not tonight." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of unsaid things. Diane turned slowly, her expression shifting from logistical stress to a deep, weary concern. "Maya," Diane sighed, the lyra voice softening just a fraction. "This is the arts gala, the donors, the scholarship committee. These are the people who decide if you get into the Rhode Island summer program. You need to look ... professional?" Maya finished the sentence, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. "Presentable?" "Polished," Diane corrected, though the meaning was the same. "You know how these people are. They look for any reason to dismiss you. Don't give them one before you even open your mouth." "But I won the award for a self-portrait," Maya argued, her voice rising with a sudden surge of defiance. She pointed to the small print of her winning piece taped to her mirror. In the painting, the subject Maya was vibrant, rendered in bold acrylics, her hair painted as a halo of gold and brown swirls, taking up half the canvas. "I painted me like this. If I show up looking like you, I'm lying to them? I'm an imposter?" Diane flinched. The comment about looking like her struck a nerve, visible in the way her jaw tightened. She walked over to Maya, looming slightly. The lighting in the room felt suddenly cool, clinical. "You think I wear my hair like this because I hate myself?" Diane asked, her voice dangerously low. "I wear it like this so I can sit at the table, so I can pay for this house, so I can pay for those paints." She reached out, her hand hovering over Maya's damp afro, then retracting as if afraid to mess up the texture she didn't understand. "Survival isn't lying, Maya, it's strategy." From the hallway, a soft humming broke the tension. Nana Rose was seated in the living room in her high-backed burgundy velvet armchair. She was an anchor in the storm of the household. At 80, her face was a map of history, lined with age and wisdom, her eyes milky with cataracts, but seeing far more than anyone else in the house. She wasn't looking at them. She was looking toward the bay window, watching the Brooklyn street life. "Trees don't ask the sky for permission to grow branches," Nana Rose said, her voice raspy and textured like old vinyl. She didn't turn her head. She just let the words float down the hallway. Diane closed her eyes for a brief second, exhaling a breath she seemed to have been holding since 1998. She looked at her mother, then back at her daughter. The generational divide stood between them. Nana Rose, who remembered when Black Beauty was a revolution. Diane, who learned that assimilation meant safety. And Maya, who just wanted to be free. "We are going to the salon," Diane said, creating a wall of finality. She checked her watch again, the armor sliding back into place. Put on your shoes. We leave in 10. Diane turned and marched down the hallway, her footsteps heavy. Maya remained on the edge of the bed. She looked at the emerald dress, then at her reflection in the mirror. The girl looking back had eyes wide with anxiety, her hair wild and shrinking as it dried. She touched the coarse, beautiful texture of her crown. She felt the history in it. She felt the art in it. And she knew that if she let that hot comb touch her hair today, something inside her would break that might never be fixed. Maya stood up, not reaching for her shoes, but reaching for the spray bottle of water on her knitstand. She began to mist her hair section by section. The tight coils drank in the moisture, becoming more defined, more alive. She took her wide tooth comb and began to gently pick at the roots, adding volume, shaping her afro into the halo she had captured in her painting. This wasn't defiance anymore. It was an act of creation, of self-love. With each spray, with each lift of the comb, she was honoring herself. Nana Rose appeared in the doorway, a small, knowing smile on her lips. She held a small, antique wooden box. "Your grandfather carved this for me a long time ago," she said, opening it. Inside, nestled on a piece of worn velvet, were 2 beautiful, hand-carved hairpins, shaped like hummingbirds. "A crown needs its jewels." Tears welled in Maya's eyes as she took them. They felt warm, like they held decades of stories. Nana Rose helped her place them in her hair, the dark wood a beautiful contrast against her dark coils. When Diane returned, ready for battle, she stopped short. Maya stood before her, not in pajamas, but in the emerald dress. The green fabric shimmered, a perfect complement to her skin. And her hair, her glorious hair, was a sculpted masterpiece, adorned with her grandmother's heirlooms. She wasn't just a girl in a dress. She was a work of art, her own living self-portrait. She looked polished. She looked professional. She looked like herself. Diane's face was a mixture of shock, frustration, and something else, a flicker of pride. The armor cracked. She looked from her daughter to her own mother standing behind her, a silent, powerful matriarch. She saw the unbroken line of strength, a legacy that couldn't be straightened or tamed. "The donors are waiting," Diane said, her voice softer now, the battle lost, or perhaps a different one won. She reached out and adjusted the strap of Maya's dress, a small maternal gesture that spoke volumes. It was an admission, an acceptance. As they walked out of the brownstone and into the bright Brooklyn day, Maya felt the sun on her face and the breeze in her hair. It wasn't just a hairstyle. It was a statement that she was enough, that her art was honest, that the branches of her family tree, no matter how they twisted and turned, were strong and deeply rooted. And tonight, at the gala, she wouldn't just be accepting an award. She would be showing them who she was on her own terms, under her own magnificent crown. Thanks for watching our story today. If this touched you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories that matter, and share your own thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time. The hallway outside my room felt like a wind tunnel, channeling the inevitable pressure of the salon appointment. 10 minutes. That was the deadline my mom, Diane, had set before her strategy of assimilation took over. But instead of reaching for my boots, I padded softly down the staircase, the wood cool against my bare feet. I needed air. I needed something that wasn't gray suits and straight lines. I found myself in the living room, drawn by the gravitational pull of the high-backed burgundy velvet armchair in the corner. This was Nana Rose's throne. The air down here was different, thicker, smelling faintly of lavender, dust, and the peppermints Nana kept in her pocket. The morning light filtered through the lace curtains, catching the floating dust motes and turning them into suspended gold. Nana Rose sat perfectly still. At 80, she seemed less like a person and more like a vessel of history. Her hands, gnarled like the roots of an ancient oak, rested on her lap. Her eyes, milky with cataracts, were fixed on a point in the middle distance, watching a movie only she could see. The dementia had been stealing her away in fragments for years, leaving behind a woman who lived in non-linear time. I sank to the floor, sitting cross-legged at the foot of her chair. It was a position I had taken since I was a toddler, the listener at the feet of the griot. "Nana?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Nana Rose didn't blink. She hummed a low, vibrating sound, a fragment of a spiritual that had no beginning and no end. "The water's rising," Nana murmured, her voice raspy. "Tell Henry to move the co-op." The water's rising. My heart sank. It was a fog day. Nana was back in South Carolina, back in a storm from 50 years ago. I leaned my head against the velvet armrest, the dampness of my shrinking afro leaving a dark spot on the fabric. "I have to burn it again, Nana," I confessed to the silence, the tears finally spilling over. "Mom wants me to burn it straight for the people with the money. She says I have to look professional. She says I have to hide." The humming stopped. For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall and the distant, frantic sounds of my mom upstairs, looking for her car keys. Then, a hand-dry, warm and trembling landed on top of my head. I froze. I looked up. Nana Rose's head had turned. The milky haze in her eyes seemed to have cleared, if only for a second, parting like clouds to reveal a sharp, piercing recognition. She wasn't looking at Henry's chicken coop anymore. She was looking at me. "Who told you to burn the garden?" Nana asked. Her voice was suddenly clear, stripped of the confusion. It was the voice of the matriarch who had raised my mother. "Mom," I said, sniffing. "She says it's wild. She says it's too much." Nana Rose's fingers moved, diving into the thick, damp sponge of my 4C hair. She didn't pull or smooth it. She massaged my scalp, her fingers navigating the coils with a familiarity that bypassed memory and went straight to instinct. "Diane forgot," Nana said, shaking her head slowly. "She thinks the fire saves you." I remember when she first put the fire in her hair, she cried, smelled like burning bone. She thought if she made herself flat, she could slip through the cracks in the doors they kept locking. Nana gently pulled a coil of my hair, watching it spring back toward the ceiling. "But you—" Nana smiled, an expression that cracked the weathered map of her face. "You got the sky in your head, child. Look at it. It don't want to lay down. It wants to go up. It's reaching for the sun. It's a crown." I reached up and touched her hand, holding it against my cheek. "I'm scared, Nana. If I don't do it, they won't give me the award. They won't see me. If you burn your crown to wear a hat that don't fit, they still won't see you," Nana said, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. "They'll see a girl who's apologizing for existing." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. Apologizing for existing. That was exactly what the silk press felt like. It was an apology. It was saying, "I'm sorry I take up this much space. I'm sorry my texture is loud. Let me quiet myself so you can be comfortable." Nana Rose leaned forward, the velvet chair creaking. She cupped my chin, her thumb brushing away a tear. "Your hair is the map, Maya. It's the wool, the cotton, the root. You think the ancestors survived the ships and the fields just so you could burn the evidence off your head?" Nana scoffed, a sound full of derision for the very idea. "You are royalty. You don't ask permission to wear your crown." The clarity began to fade as quickly as it had arrived. Nana's gaze drifted back toward the window. The sharpness left her posture, and she slumped slightly back into the velvet. "Henry?" she muttered, her voice drifting back into the fog. "Henry, the kettle is whistling." But the message had been delivered. I sat there, the silence of the room now feeling charged, electric. The shame that had been weighing down my shoulders evaporated, replaced by a terrifying, thrilling resolve. "It wants to go up," Nana had said. "It's reaching for the sun?" Upstairs, the heavy footsteps of my mother thudded across the ceiling. "Maya!" Diane's voice boomed down the stairs, laced with the panic of a schedule falling apart. "We have 5 minutes." "Get in the car." I stood up. I looked at Nana Rose, who was humming again, lost in her own time. I touched my hair damp, shrinking, defiant. It felt different now. It didn't feel like a mess. It felt like a decision. I walked toward the stairs, not to get my shoes, but to find the comb. I was going to wear my crown. Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart. See you next time. The bathroom door was locked, but it couldn't block out the sound of Diane's anxiety. "Maya, the Uber is 3 minutes away." If we miss this slot, Madame C will cancel. She doesn't do grace periods. Maya stood in front of the steamy mirror. The hot water from the faucet was still running, filling the sink. The noise was a shield, a white noise barrier between her and the woman pacing the hallway in a power suit. Maya looked at her reflection. The steam had turned the mirror hazy, softening her features, but there was no softening the knot of dread in her chest. She reached up and touched her wet hair. It was fully shrunken now, a dense, intricate forest of coils that swallowed her fingers. If she opened that door and got in the car, she knew exactly what the next 3 hours would look like. The smell of burning keratin. The heat of the blow-dryer so close to her scalp she would have to clench her teeth. The hot comb smoking on the stove. And then the result, hair that hung limp and shiny, moving when the wind blew, devoid of its spirit. Hair that made people like Sarah comfortable. The memory hit Maya like a physical shove. It was last Tuesday in the student lounge. Sarah, whose ponytail swung like a pendulum, had reached out without asking, sproing asterisk. She had pulled one of Maya's twists and let it snap back, laughing. "It's so spongy," Sarah had said, her eyes wide with a mixture of fascination and repulsion. "Does it wash? It feels like wool. Can I put a pencil in it?" Maya had frozen. She had let it happen. She had smiled that tight, polite smile Diane had taught her, the one that kept you safe. The one that kept you scholarship material. She had felt like an exhibit, a petting zoo animal. The girl with the gravity-defying hair. If she straightened it tonight, Sarah wouldn't touch it. Sarah would nod approvingly. The donors would see a clean silhouette. Diane would breathe easier, but Maya would disappear. She looked down at the counter. On the left, the flat iron Diane had left out, just in case. On the right, Maya's personal arsenal, a tub of Eco-Styler gel, a spray bottle of water, a wide-tooth comb, and a small velvet pouch. Nana Rose's voice echoed in the steam. Asterisk apologizing for existing. Asterisk. Maya turned off the faucet. The silence in the bathroom was sudden and absolute. "Maya?" Diane's voice came through the door, closer now, pressed against the wood. "Are you dressed?" "We have to go." Maya took a breath. It shook in her lungs. "I'm not going, Mom." "What? I can't hear you." "Open the door." I said. Maya spoke to her reflection, watching her own eyes harden. "I'm not going to the salon." She didn't wait for the explosion on the other side. She moved with the frantic, focused energy of an artist striking a canvas. She grabbed the spray bottle. Mist. The water revitalized the coils, waking them up. She didn't fight the texture. She welcomed it. She grabbed the wide-tooth comb. This was the work. This was the gardening Nana talked about. She started from the ends, gently working through the tangles, honoring the complexity of the strands. It wasn't easy. Her arm ached, and the density was formidable, but it was her struggle. It wasn't a submission to heat. It was a negotiation with herself. "Maya, open this door right now." Diane rattled the knob. "Do you have any idea how important tonight is? You represent this family." "I know," Maya yelled back, her voice cracking but loud. She scooped a generous amount of gel, rubbing it between her palms. "I am representing us, my way." She slicked the sides up. The thick gel smoothed her edges, creating a sleek, dark gradient that led up to the explosion of curls at the crown. She used a heavy-duty hair tie, wrapping it once, twice tight enough to hold, loose enough to let the puff bloom. She pulled at the hair on top, fluffing it, teasing it out until it stood high and proud. It was a cloud. It was a sculpture. It took up space. It demanded attention. Then she opened the velvet pouch. Inside were 5 small gold cuffs. She had bought them with her own allowance money from a street vendor in Harlem weeks ago, hiding them in her drawer. With steady hands she placed them, one near her temple. 2 scattered through the puff, catching the bathroom light like buried treasure. 2 more near the back. She stepped back. The girl in the mirror wasn't the shrinking, anxious child in flannel pajamas. She looked regal. The high puff elongated her neck, lifting her chin. The gold cuffs shimmered against the deep brown of her hair, making her look like a queen from a kingdom Diane had forgotten the name of. She put on the emerald green dress. The fabric settled over her skin, contrasting beautifully with the dark, voluminous hair. Maya unlocked the door. Diane was standing there, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the Uber cancel button, her face flushed with frustration. She opened her mouth to yell, to lecture, to drag Maya out by the arm if necessary. But the words died in her throat. Diane stared. She looked at the sleek edges. She looked at the magnificent, defiant puff rising like a crown. She saw the gold cuffs glinting in the hallway light. But mostly she saw Maya's face. The defiance was there, yes, but so was the joy. It was the same expression Maya had painted in her self-portrait. Maya stood tall, her heart hammering against her ribs, but her feet planted firmly on the floorboards. "I'm ready," Maya said, her voice steady. "This is how I'm accepting my award." The silence in the hallway was so thick you could feel it, just waiting to shatter. I looked at Maya, my daughter, standing there. My eyes took in the whole picture, the huge puff of her hair, the gold cuffs holding it in place, and that look on her face so full of defiance. Just then my phone chimed. A cheerful little sound. Uber arriving. It felt so wrong, so out of place in this moment. "Cancel it," I whispered. I wasn't just talking about the car. I felt like I was trying to cancel this whole terrifying reality. "I'm ready, Mom," Maya said again, her voice steady. She was clutching her little clutch bag like it was a shield. "Ready?" My voice cracked, all my careful control just breaking apart. I stepped closer to her, that mask of the tough corporate lawyer slipping away, revealing the pure panic underneath. "Maya, you are walking into a room filled with people who write checks based on what makes them comfortable, based on who looks like a safe bet. You think you're just making art, but I'm telling you, you're making yourself a target." "I'm not a target. I'm a person." She shot back, taking a step away from me. Her heel caught on the rug and she stumbled slightly. "Why are you so ashamed of me?" "Ashamed?" The word hit me like a slap. My face twisted. "You think this is shame?" "This is fear, Maya. Do you have any idea how hard it is to even get into that room? Do you know how much harder it is to stay there when you look like ... I couldn't even finish. I just waved my hand towards her head, towards that glorious, magnificent crown of hair that seemed to defy gravity itself. "Like you're fighting them." "I'm not fighting them," she said, her voice rising. "I'm just being me. In this world, for us, just being is a fight." I practically shouted. The words echoed down the hall of our brownstone. Downstairs, I heard Nana Rose's gentle humming stop. The silence that followed was even heavier. I started pacing, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor like a frantic heartbeat. I burn my scalp with chemicals every 6 weeks so that when I speak they hear my arguments, not my race. I wear these power suits so they don't dare question my credentials. I did all of this, I swallowed all of this, so you could have the luxury of holding that paintbrush. And you're telling me you want to throw it all away for a hairstyle? I saw the tears welling up in her eyes, hot and fast, but she wouldn't let them fall. She just stood there, her chin held high. I knew she was thinking about her self-portrait, about the cruel comments she'd heard, about Nana Rose's loving hand on her head. "You swallowed it so I wouldn't have to," Maya said. Her voice shook, but every word was crystal clear. "If I go in there looking like a smaller version of you, then everything you sacrificed was for nothing. You worked this hard so I could be free, Mom, not so I could be another version of scared." I froze. Her words just hung there in the air between us, sharp and undeniably true. I looked at her then, I really looked at her. The emerald green dress, her beautiful skin glowing against the rich color, and that hair. That hair rising up like a dark, golden halo. It was stunning, and it was terrifyingly, wonderfully bold. My shoulders just slumped. All the stiffness, all the fight of the high-powered attorney just melted away, and I was just a tired, scared mother. I leaned against the wall and just slid down until I was crouching on the floor, my face buried in my hands. "Mom?" Maya's voice was soft. She took a hesitant step toward me. "They told me ... My voice was muffled by my hands. I looked up at her, my eyes wet, my mascara starting to run. "When I was 22, at my very first law firm, the senior partner, he told me my braids were distracting. He said if I wanted to be taken seriously, I needed to look the part. I reached up and touched my own stiff, chemically straightened hair. I went to a salon that same night. The stylist left the relaxer on too long. It burned. It felt like my whole skull was on fire. And I just sat there and let it burn because I wanted that job so badly. I wanted to give you this house." I looked straight into her eyes. feeling completely exposed, completely vulnerable. I've been so scared ever since that if I let my real hair show, I'll lose everything. Maya dropped to her knees right in front of me. Suddenly we were at eye level. We were just two women on the floor of a hallway, all the space and anger between us bridged by that one confession. "You won't lose me," Maya said, her voice so gentle. "And we won't lose the house? But I can't carry that fire for you. Mom, it burns too much." A sound escaped me, something between a sob and a laugh. I let out a long, shuddering breath. My hand was trembling as I reached out and touched the soft puff of her hair. This time I didn't pull back. I felt the softness, the fullness, the life in it. It's not perfectly centered," I murmured. The old perfectionist in me flickered, but the criticism was gone. Maya smiled through her tears. "I did my best." "It's hard to see the back," I sniffed, wiping my eyes. I stood up, kicked off my expensive, painful heels, and held out my hand to her. "Come here, sit." I grabbed a little stool from the bathroom and set it under the warm hallway light. Maya sat down, her back to me. For a moment, I just stood there, watching her. Then I bent down and picked up the jar of edge control and the little brush she'd left on the floor. "Nana Rose used to do this," I said quietly. My voice was steady now, finding an old, familiar rhythm. I started smoothing a stray curl at the nape of her neck. My touch was gentle, almost reverent. On Sunday nights, before the week started, she'd say she was watering the garden. "She told me," Maya whispered. "She said it reaches for the sun." I paused, looking at my own hands against her natural hair. My manicured, assimilated hands tending to this beautiful, wild garden. "It does," I admitted, my voice thick with a pride that suddenly felt overwhelming. "It really does." I worked in silence for a few minutes, carefully adjusting the gold cuffs, smoothing the little flyaways. I wasn't trying to tame it or hide it. I was honoring it, making it look regal. When I was done, I rested my hands on her shoulders and we looked at our reflection in the hallway mirror. A mother in the power suit with the straightened hair, the daughter in the emerald dress with the natural crown. We didn't look alike. But for the first time in so long, we looked like we belonged to each other. "You look," I searched for the right word. I wasn't looking for professional or presentable. "You look like art, Maya." I leaned down and kissed the very top of her hair, right between the gold cuffs. "Now," I said, straightening up. I put my mask back on, but this time it wasn't a mask of fear. It was a mask of fierce, unwavering protection. "Let's go get that award. And if anyone even looks at you sideways, you let me handle them. I am, after all, a very expensive lawyer." Thanks for watching our story unfold. If these moments moved you, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content that touches the heart. We'll see you in the next one. The air in the grand ballroom of the Brooklyn Museum felt thin, scented with expensive champagne and the distinct, aged smell of old money. It was a sea of black tuxedos and polite cocktail dresses, a world designed for hushed tones and unobtrusive behavior. I felt the atmosphere try to shrink me the moment I walked through the double doors. The white gaze was palpable, a collective, assessing stare that weighed my presence against some invisible standard. A week ago, this room would have terrified me. A week ago, I would have been praying my straightened hair didn't frizz, hoping to blend into the background. But tonight was different. Tonight, I felt the weight of the gold cuffs in my hair, a tangible reminder of the crown I had built for myself. Tonight, I felt my mom Diane's hand at the small of my back, not pushing, not steering, but grounding me. "Chin up," she murmured, not as a command, but like a co-conspirator. Diane wore her corporate armor, a sharp, slate gray suit, but her eyes were scanning the room like a lioness watching the savannah. Just then, Mrs. Sterling, the chairwoman of the scholarship committee, approached us. She was a woman of sharp angles and even sharper smiles, her pale blonde hair lacquered into an immobile helmet. Her eyes dipped immediately to my hair, widening just slightly. Was it surprise? Or maybe disappointment that her palatable scholarship recipient had gone off-brand? "Diane and Maya," Mrs. Sterling said, her voice like crushed ice. "Quite a statement piece tonight, Maya." The old me would have stammered an apology, tried to explain. But before I could, Diane stepped slightly in front of me, her expensive lawyer voice slicing through the ambient noise. "It's not a statement, Mrs. Sterling," she said smoothly. "It's her hair, and doesn't she look magnificent?" Mrs. Sterling blinked, completely caught off guard by the preemptive strike. "Oh, yes, of course." "Charming," she managed, before adding, "The program begins in 5 minutes," and just like that she retreated. Diane squeezed my shoulder. "See? They're just people, baby. And most of them are terrified of anything real." When my time came, the spotlight felt hot against my skin. The MC announced my name, and a wave of polite applause washed over me as I walked up the stage stairs in my emerald dress. The podium was too tall. The microphone hummed with anticipation. I looked out at the blur of faces in the darkened ballroom. I saw the donors in the front rows, the people holding the keys to my future. I saw the large projection screen behind me, displaying my winning self-portrait, that vibrant acrylic explosion of color and coils. I looked down at the index cards in my hand. Mom had helped me write the speech yesterday. It was gracious, humble, and emphasized my gratitude for the opportunity. It was a safe speech for a safe girl with safe hair, but holding them now, they felt like ashes in my hands. So I placed the index cards face down on the podium. The silence in the room deepened. "I wrote a speech thanking you for this award," I began, my voice clearer and stronger than I expected. "And I am grateful. This scholarship means I can paint all summer." I paused, looking toward the front row until I found Diane. My mom was sitting rigidly, hands clasped, her eyes locked on me, broadcasting pure, unwavering belief. "But the painting that won this award," I gestured to the screen behind me, "that's a self-portrait. It's me holding the universe in my head. When I painted it, I didn't use straight lines. I used swirls and loops and thick, heavy paint that wouldn't lay flat no matter how hard I pressed with the brush." I reached up, touching one of the gold cuffs in my high puff. "This morning I was going to burn my hair straight so I would look professional for this room. I was going to flatten myself so I would make you comfortable." My voice trembled slightly, then firmed up, channeling the raspy wisdom of my Nana Rose. But then I realized, if I accepted an award for that painting while wearing a mask over who I really am, I would be a liar, and I'm an artist. "My job is to tell the truth," a murmur ran through the crowd. This was definitely not the script. "My hair grows toward the sun," I declared, the words feeling like a prayer and a protest all at once. "It takes up space. It's loud, and it's mine. It's not something to be fixed or tamed or watered down so it fits better in your boardrooms. If my art is worthy of being in this room, then all of me is worthy of being in this room, exactly as I am." I stepped back from the podium. For 2 agonizing seconds there was dead silence, my heart hammered against my ribs. Had I gone too far? Had I just ruined everything? Then, in the front row, Diane stood up. It wasn't a polite rise. She shot up, her hands clapping together with a force that echoed through the ballroom. A moment later, a younger black woman in the third row stood up. Then a man in the back. And then, slowly, like a wave cresting, the entire room rose. It wasn't polite applause anymore. It was a roar. It was a standing ovation that felt thick and real, vibrating through the floorboards. I stood center stage, the spotlight catching the gold in my hair, making me look like a constellation. I wasn't shrinking, I wasn't apologizing. I was just breathing, finally taking up all the space I deserved. I looked down at my mother, who was clapping with tears streaming down her face, her corporate mask gone forever, replaced by the radiant pride of a gardener watching her most beautiful flower bloom. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more. See you next time. The Uber ride back to Brooklyn was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence, nothing like the jagged tension that had filled the house that morning. The streetlights flickered past, rhythmic bursts of amber light illuminating the back seat. Maya rested her head on Diane's shoulder, and Diane, for the first time in what felt like forever, wasn't checking her emails. She was just holding her daughter's hand. When they entered the brownstone, the house felt different. The air was no longer heavy with unspoken rules and expectations. It felt settled. The wash-day energy that started the day as a battle had somehow transformed into a peace treaty. As soon as the door clicked shut, Diane kicked off her heels with a long, unladylike groan of relief. She walked into the kitchen, the silk of her blouse rustling. But she didn't pour a glass of wine, her usual ritual. Instead, she poured 2 glasses of water and slid one across the granite island to Maya. "You were brave today." "Maya," Diane said, leaning against the counter. Her bob was still perfectly straight, a testament to the chemicals and heat that held it hostage. "Braver than I've been in 20 years. Maya took a sip, her fingers carefully touching the gold cuff still resting in her afro puff. "You stood up for me, Mom. You were pretty brave, too." Diane smiled, but it was a sad, wistful kind of smile. She reached up and touched the ends of her hair. It was a habitual movement, a quick check for perfection, but tonight her fingers lingered with a sense of dissatisfaction. She looked at Maya, really looked at her. She saw the texture, the life, the defiance of gravity that had won over a room full of people who only understood straight lines. "I'm going upstairs," Diane said softly. "Don't go to bed yet. Come see me in a minute?" Maya nodded, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. Something important was happening. 10 minutes later, she walked into her mother's bedroom. It was a space usually reserved for absolute order and privacy, pristine beige bedding, minimalist art, everything under strict control. But tonight, the bathroom door was wide open, and the sound of running water filled the room. Maya stepped into the doorway and just froze. Diane was standing over the sink. She had stripped off her power suit and was wearing her old silk bathrobe. Her face was scrubbed clean of all the gala makeup, but it was her hair that stopped Maya's breath. Diane had her head under the faucet. The water was running full force, completely soaking the expensive, chemically straightened bob. The bone-straight style that was meant to last 2 weeks, the armor she wore to war every single day, was being systematically destroyed. Diane shut off the tap and stood up. Water dripped down her face, ruining the collar of her robe. Her hair, now soaking wet, hung in a confused state straight at the ends where the damage was permanent, but waving slightly at the roots where her natural texture was fighting to breathe. The smell of wet, burnt hair, the scent of the fire, rose in the steam. "Mom?" Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. "What are you doing?" "Madame C will kill you." Diane looked at her own reflection, then at Maya in the mirror. Her eyes were red-rimmed but crystal clear. "I don't know what's under here anymore, Maya," Diane admitted, her voice trembling. She ran a hand through the wet, straggly mess. "I've been burning it for so long, I don't know what grows out of my own head. I don't know my own map." She turned to face her daughter, water dripping onto the plush bath mat. The corporate lawyer, the powerhouse, was gone. In her place was a woman asking to be reintroduced to herself. "It feels heavy," Diane said, touching the wet strands. "And it smells like smoke." Maya stepped into the bathroom. "She didn't say I told you so." She didn't bring up the years of arguments or the crushing pressure. She simply reached into her pocket and pulled out her wide-toothed comb. "Sit down, Mom," Maya said, pointing to the vanity stool, the exact same one Diane had sat her on so many times before. And Diane sat. Her posture, usually so rigid and unyielding, was slumped in surrender. Maya moved behind her. She reached for the bottle of conditioner on the shelf, the one Diane always bought for guests but never, ever used herself. Maya pumped a generous amount into her hands. "You have to be gentle," Maya said, her voice dropping into the same soothing cadence Nana Rose always used. "It's not a wire to be bent, it's a plant. You have to water it." Maya worked the conditioner into her mother's hair. She could feel the line of demarcation, the physical boundary where the natural new growth met the processed damage. It was a scar, a physical record of Diane's entire survival strategy, and Maya treated it with reverence. Diane closed her eyes as Maya massaged her scalp. "I think she began, her voice soft. "I think I'm ready to cut the rest off. Not tonight, but soon. I want to see the curls again." "We can do the big chop whenever you're ready," Maya promised, gently detangling a stubborn knot near the nape of her neck. "I'll help you. I've got all the YouTube tutorials saved." Diane let out a wet, relieved laugh. "I'm going to need a lot of gel, aren't I?" "Gallons," Maya teased back. They sat there for a long time, the silence filled only by the squish of conditioner and the rhythmic sound of the comb passing through wet hair. The tension of the years, the burden of professionalism, the constant fear of the white gaze. The pressure to assimilate all of it seemed to wash down the drain with the suds. When they were done, Diane's hair was damp and combed back. It wasn't perfect, it was a transition, but it was honest. For the first time in decades, it was truly honest. "Come on," Diane said, standing up and taking Maya's hand. "Let's tell Nana." They walked down the hallway to the room at the very end. The door was cracked open just a little. Inside, a nightlight cast a warm amber glow across the room. Nana Rose was asleep in her bed, her breathing deep and rhythmic. She looked so small under the heavy quilt, her beautiful white hair braided into two neat plaits for the night. She was the root of this family tree, the one who remembered the time before the fire, the one who kept the history safe while Diane built the walls and Maya painted the windows. Diane and Maya stood together at the foot of the bed. "She knew," Diane whispered, looking at her mother's peaceful, sleeping face. "She told me once that the fire would go out eventually. She said the garden always wins." Maya leaned her head on Diane's shoulder. Diane wrapped her arm around Maya, pulling her close. The water from Diane's damp hair seeped into Maya's dress, but neither of them cared. In the quiet of that Brooklyn brownstone, 3 generations of women breathed in unison. Nana, dreaming in the past. Diane, healing in the present. And Maya, looking toward a future where she would never, ever have to apologize for her crown. The weight of expectation had finally lifted. All that was left was the lightness of being free. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. We'll see you in the next one.